I'm Joanna Garzilli. You're watching Life Stories. Today, my guest is Steve Orozco, founder and CEO of Smash Global and former pro fighter. Steve, welcome to Life Stories.
Thank you for having me.
I am very much looking forward to, I feel today, getting into the depths of mindset, of resilience.
Yes.
First, I want to start at earlier years for you. Instinctively, I feel 10 years old. So we're going to go there. Talk to me about a time, something that happened in your life at 10 that has led you to where you are now, today.
Wow, that's a tough question. 10 years old, let me think. 10 years old, I was in New England, back in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Man, all of my friends were athletes, at that time. I remember Pop Warner football. They were all savages, and I was a non-football player. I tried Pop Warner football and I hated it. I hated getting hit, but it's different when you get hit and you can hit back.
That's sort of ironic.
Compared to football, you get hit, you have to come up and kind of play again, and I hated it. So trying to compete with all my friends all the time is probably one of my biggest drivers. I still remember that now, because I was literally the bottom of the totem pole and the smallest kid of all of my friends growing up.
So how tall, compared to...
Oh man, I can say this. My freshman year in high school, so you're talking 14, I wrestled at 103 pounds. So which is the smallest weight class in wrestling. So I don't know how I was when I was 10, but I was a little guy, always a little guy, late bloomer. I'm not the little guy anymore, but I was then.
So what was then the next step between then, when you couldn't stand the football, and then getting that desire to...
I think the first time I ever stepped on a wrestling mat was the first time I fell in love with something. So I always tell people, my first love was my mom, my second love was wrestling. And I just fell in love with the sport. I think it was because the first time there was a sport that it didn't matter how big you were or how strong you were, because you're walking onto the mat and everyone is on the same weight class. So now I get to wrestle with someone else who's also 100 pounds, compared to me in the backyard wrestling with my friends who are 30, 40 pounds bigger than me. And that's pubescent years too.
Now, you spoke about your mom being your first love there.
Yeah.
So how did she cope with you getting into these fights all the time?
What's crazy is, this is the most probably hypocritical thing ever. So my mother, she went to Yale. She's a PA, right? Now her focus then was...
What's your mom's name?
Heather.
Heather. And
her focus was head trauma. So imagine your mom being in the head trauma of the ER unit and you're fighting in a cage. My mom went to all my fights more so to make sure I was okay. But it's always ironic. People are like, how does she handle that? I'm like, I don't even know.
Have you asked her how she handled it?
She'll do anything to support me, and she'll never dissuade me from something, which is what I love about her. She is a very passion-driven person. So I obviously grew up in a society where, me being 37 years old now, I grew up where it was, you got to go to college and white picket fence, and you're supposed to get married before 30 and have kids, and that's what's being successful. But my mom was always the person that said, do what you love. So even when I stopped fighting, hopefully I'm not jumping too far ahead, but when I stopped fighting, I thought about going back into finance, because that's where I started. And she actually told me, don't go back into finance, you didn't love it. Do something that you love. So
powerful.
Yeah, she's my hero.
So did you study finance at school?
Yes, I double majored in finance and marketing with a minor in pre-law.
Wow.
Yeah, the minor pre-law wasn't a big deal. I had to add 2 more classes because I was so close for that minor. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to get my MBA or go to law school after I went to college. So I took my LSATs, I took my GMATs, I bombed my LSATs. I did amazing on my GMAT, so I went to grad school after college.
I don't even know what LSAT is.
I'm sorry. So when you're going to go to graduate school, there's an entry exam.
I see.
So for law school, you have to get LSATs. For med school, it's MCATs. for grad school, like business. It's
Very
GMATs.
cool. Thank you for educating me on the US school system.
You're welcome. The US school system is horrible. And until you go to like grad school, I think that's when it really matters. It just kind of sucks that you have to go through all these unimportant things to get to the thing that you want to do.
What was your preparation emotionally, mentally, spiritually for your first professional fight?
Man, it's the scariest thing ever. Well, first of all, the preparation is, you have a fight camp for 8 to 10 weeks. You're cutting weight, you're miserable, you're training 2 to 3 times a day, your body's beat up. I mean, I've had 3 knee surgeries, I've had shoulder, I've had broken hands, broken feet. Most happens during training. The fight, rarely do you ever get injured. Yeah.
You talk about being miserable during that training period, but there must be some joy in that process. So what was it for you that you loved about being miserable?
Man, it's like being an entrepreneur, right? Like you wonder, why the heck why would someone want to be an entrepreneur, own their own business, work 100 hours a week for like 5 years making nothing? Like, why would you do that? Because you just love it. There's something that, like, see, I'm getting goosebumps. Like, there's something about doing something you love that you can't even explain it. Only these goosebumps can like exude the amount of excitement that I get from it.
The body doesn't lie, right?
The body does not lie. The heart doesn't lie. Like my another motivator, his name is Ben Newman, and he flew in and we trained together one day at the gym. And during that time, he's giving me like pointers, and he said, you have to find what makes you burn inside. When you find what makes you burn, then everything else comes easy. So you're willing to be miserable and take the bumps and bruises, or maybe be broke for a couple of years, because at the end, if you trust the process, it'll happen and you'll be successful.
And so you didn't go into finance. Was this then you took the path of founding Smash Global?
Yes.
And talk to me about what Smash Global does. I mean, I've seen a multitude of action stars I grew up watching in movies.
Yep. So I'll backtrack. So my last fight, when I stopped fighting, so I went to Australia, Melbourne, Australia. I fought their #1 kid. I was 8-0 at the time, and I got this opportunity. I couldn't say no. And I was trying to make one run to get to the UFC. And I said, as soon as I lose, I'm done. So I went to Australia. I was confident. I felt amazing, but I just wasn't myself that night. And I got caught with a punch, and I dropped, and I still remember just being on all fours in the ring. My nose is pouring blood, but he's behind me just throwing punches, raining them down. Sounds like gunshots going off in the back of my head, which you don't feel because adrenaline is a very powerful drug. My corner's yelling at me. The ref is saying, improve your position. The crowd is so loud because I'm in Australia. It's the main event. I couldn't even hear myself think. And I was just sitting there and I just froze. And all I had to do was turn over and pull guard and get my composure back. But before that happened, it was ding, ding, ding. I mean, the ref stopped it and the fight was over. So I went back to my hotel room. Everyone else went out and partied. And I'm sitting there in the dark by myself, no friends, no family. And I just felt this level of anxiety. Like, what do I do next with my life? I'm 32 years old. I have a 1-year-old at home. I can't fight forever. The chances of me being the next George St. Pierre at that time is like less than 1%, because I'd probably have to fight 5 or 6 more times. And I didn't have that in me anymore. So I said to myself while I'm in this hotel room, what am I gonna do now? 3 options, right? 1 was go back into finance. Again, I wouldn't be happy. 2 was open up my own gym, which sometimes I still wanna do, because it'd be nice to have like a home base. But I don't wanna get up at 5 a.m. and clean mats at 11 p.m. That was my rationale at the time. And the other one was, like when I got my MBA, they kind of teach you to be a consultant. Like, how do you make a company better, right? So I said to myself, what can I do to make the sport of MMA better? What is it lacking? And it's grown so fast, such a short period of time, that the crowd hasn't evolved with it. And I always say this, I mean no disrespect to the fans, but MMA came from a backyard feel. It's a very NASCAR crowd. If you go to any major MMA, you have tap out t-shirts in the front row and Bud Lights and everyone bleed, bleed, bleed. But boxing isn't like that. Boxing has a lot more respect because it came from people who had money in the first place. So you go to boxing, you'll see people, all different demographics, but suits and ties, or their wives in gowns, they make a thing of it. And I said, I need to get that crowd. So what do I have to do? I need the Formula One crowd. So in like the auto industry, right, you have NASCAR, you have Formula One, same sport, two different crowds. I want the Formula One crowd. How do I get them?
Wow.
So then in my head, I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? So coming from a finance background, I went to all these black tie charity galas back in the day. And I said, that's what I need to do. I need to do a black tie event with a cage in the middle, set up like a wedding, charge a ticket price point that brings in the celebrities and higher net worth demographic. And I had my first show in San Diego in August of 2015. And it's been whoop, ever since.
So how did, I mean, you have Dolph Lundgren and
Yes.
Lou Ferrigno
Yes.
and Steven Seagal.
Yes.
And the list of names keeps going. How did you already know them, or did you reach out to them?
Some of them I knew.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of 1 degrees of separation. I don't know the answer to this question, but for some reason, a lot of people, they trust me, and I've developed a lot of friendship. So I have a lot of 1 degrees of separation. So if I say, listen, I'm looking for an honoree, there's a lot of times people say, oh, hey, I know this person, I know that person. Would you like me to make that introduction? And then they do, and then I talk to them and I meet them, and they fall in love with me, and they love what I just said to you about elevating MMA, because all those older guys, like a Dolph Lundgren, who's a black belt in karate, or Steven Seagal is a black belt in Aikido, or let's say a Freddie Roach, was an elite boxing trainer. When I'm telling them what I'm trying to do for the sport and anti-bullying, they actually want to be involved, thankfully.
So applying that, right, for anyone who is an entrepreneur, even if they don't know someone directly, I'm hearing the 1 degree of separation there, and then something that there's an element of give back there as well. Did you used to watch, I'm just curious, did you used to watch NASCAR and Formula One, or were you into car, or you just understood those industries and just sort of...
because every industry, for example, I'll give another one, like football, like going to a football game. You can go to a football game and you can sit in the stands, right? Or most football stadiums or basketball, they have the suites, or they have the VIP boxes. Me personally, and I love sports, I prefer to be in the suites because I love connecting with people. If I'm just sitting in a seat like this for 4 hours, I can't connect with anybody except the person here and person here. And that's generally like your wife or your best friend, so you're not really networking. So I prefer the whole VIP experience when I do stuff. So I want to provide the same thing for my sport, because you can't get that in MMA right now.
What do you envision 10 years from now? Where do you sense that Smash Global will be?
I guess in a perfect world, like any entrepreneur would say from a startup, is 10 years from now, I hope there's no more Smash Global, because I've already built it and sold it to one of the bigger, because in MMA right now, we're in this part of the industry where they're all competing with each other. UFC is number 1, and they're not going anywhere. But then you have all of these like number 2s. You have Bellator and One Championship, PFL and Combate Americas trying to find their way to the top. So I'm going to assume that eventually they're going to start picking off other smaller brands to bring into them.
What's a quality that you feel you cultivated within yourself through your professional training days that you apply daily now to being an entrepreneur?
Trust the process. You have to. Like, nothing's overnight. The one thing I've realized too is you can't compare yourself to other people. For example, Instagram is a perfect example.
Yes, it is.
Everyone wants to compare their chapter 1 to everybody else's chapter 20. Like me, I guess I'm quote unquote influencer because I have a blue check. I would love to be Gary Vee and have that kind of influence, but Gary Vee's like on chapter 30. I'm on like chapter 3. I don't even have one camera person following me around yet. He has 10. I'm not ready for 10 people to follow me around. So I keep on picking little pieces of the puzzle to add to my arsenal. So when I do get there, I'm ready.
Well, it's interesting what you say about being ready. I was having that conversation with someone the other day. So, do you know what aspects of yourself you have to transform, align, connect to within to make yourself ready, or are you still discovering those? Do you feel there's blind spots there?
I think I just discover every day. It's so funny. Every time I have a meeting with somebody, I learn something new. Even today, I was just had breakfast, and there's two people I've been wanting to connect with, and today was actually finally the day. So right after breakfast, I shot over to this guy's house to make the introduction, and these guys just fell in love, and they're talking about like wealth, and talking about, why a billionaire family is with another billionaire family, and it made me realize, oh, now I understand. Like one guy was Indian, for example. Now, arranged marriages, right? It doesn't really make sense to us, but when they were talking about it, said, no, it's not about the marriage between A and B. It's about bringing two families together because family is so important. So now two families come together and then they grow. It's almost like no different than what we do now, collaborating with each other.
Yes.
Like we collaborate, now we're bringing our worlds together.
Yes.
And that's how they do it in other countries, but in relationships. That was like a big eye opener of how you can actually live life in collaboration with other people.
So speaking of collaboration, who are 5 people that are the wind beneath your wings? They could be living, they could be past. You could know them directly or not know them.
Okay. Let me think about this. Number 1 is my mom.
Of course, right?
My mom is
Yes.
literally my hero. I can never talk enough about her. She actually came up yesterday for the day. We had an amazing Cinco de Mayo together. I had this guy, Frederic, flew in from France, and he was here for a week. He said, Steve, can I come have lunch with you? He actually made this toy art figure for me of my truck.
Wow.
And obviously it was like Cinco de Mayo, had all these planes, and I don't want to sound like rude, but I didn't really want to, because I had so much going on. But I'm a very loyal person, so I felt like I should. He gave so much of his time for me, I have to reciprocate. So I told my mom said, yeah, I'll go with you. When she came and she saw the influence that she'd never seen before between myself and somebody that follows me or is a fan. And she was floored by it. It was really cool to see because she's my hero.
Yes.
So my mom, number 1.
Yes.
Number 2, my wife, for sure, Janine. She's my foundation. So she really understands roles. And I don't mean that in a very ignorant or egotistical way. It's more of a,
The role of marriage with one's beloved.
yeah, because
Yes.
for her, she stays home, she's care of our son, she's able to do all things she wants to do while I'm able to go out and do all things that I can do. Because if we don't have family here, really.
You're a team.
Yeah, so we're a team. And most people are like, oh, all she does is do this, and all you do is do this. No, it has to be like that.
Oh, I know.
We don't
yes.
compete, so it's not like I try not to compete with her, she doesn't compete with me. A lot of times, too many people in relationships compete with each other.
Absolutely.
Which is why 2 alphas don't normally work and 2 betas don't normally work.
So number 2.
I'm sorry, number 2. Number 3, my best friend, Ron Casper. Ron Casper, we grew up together, known each other since we were 14. Literally my right-hand man, my best man in my wedding. It's so funny because I grew up as a grappler, and this was a kid who was the athlete, state champion 100 meters, all-state football, played football in college, and he moved to San Diego, which is what propelled me to move to San Diego when I turned pro as a fighter. And at that time, which was 2009, he had never grappled a day in his life. So I used to go and beat on him. We would grapple and I would whip his butt. And then all of a sudden he started taking jiu-jitsu. Now fast forward 10 years, I can't grapple with him anymore. He's that good.
Wow.
Because he kept up with the jiu-jitsu over time. And for me, it was jiu-jitsu, and then I would stop. Jiu-jitsu and stop because I had so many other things going on. So now he's a black belt. He inspires me every single day.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that would be 3. Man, this is a tough question. 4, Lance Groth, another kid. He's from Connecticut. He moved to San Diego as well. He's from Hartford. He comes from that background where in Hartford, the murder rate is high. So one of those things where he grew up in an environment where either all of his friends are either dead or in jail. And he moved here because he went to law school. He was the one kid who got out. He went to law school, very successful. Now he has an amazing nonprofit called Collective Access, which is for children and is empowering kids for networking. And that's something I've never seen before, like networking for kids, teaching kids tools to network.
Amazing.
Also, we used to spar all the time. He's a great boxer, and he owns a company that does like tax exchanges. So another one inspires
Very
me.
cool.
So what's that?
And last one.
Four. Oh my God.
Number 5.
Man, this is really tough. I don't know if I can answer that.
What pops into your head?
Let me think. I'm trying to think someone's really influential. It's hard because I feel like I have so many mentors and so many people I talk to on a daily basis. That's so much value to my life.
Yes.
You know, it's hard to, you never want to leave out your father. You know, I'm like, I love my family so much. And my father's just a very strong, silent guy. He's old school. But he softened up so much. And I think that also softened me up. And my father was one of those kind of guys who, he didn't tell you he loved you as a kid. No hugs and kisses. That's a sign of weakness. And it wasn't until like I had my son that he really, really changed. He just turned into this soft guy. So now every time we talk, it's, I love you. And like when he says he loves me, like as a son who loves his father, that's like everything. Because you don't hear that. Like your mom says she loves you. Yeah, it's great. I love you too. When your dad says it, like a strong father, it really does something to you.
So my last question to you.
Shoot.
Speaking of father, legacy. What do you want to be remembered for?
An absolute savage, but a humble savage. Like one of those people that extremely likable. People love to be around me. They know I was giving back, but they also know that I will smash everything.
Thank you, Steve.
You're very welcome.
Today, my guest was Steve Orozco, founder and CEO of Smash Global and former professional fighter. You can binge watch all the episodes at livestoriestelevision.com and on the EverTalk app at Apple TV and Roku. I'm Joanna Garzilli. Thank you for watching Life Stories. We look forward to you tuning in next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Great.
I appreciate it.